For the last set of course content PowerPoints, first we're going to look at organization and time management, and then the next set we'll look at the importance of keeping records and what you should post and have on file in your center. Things we'll look at today: the role and responsibilities of a director, tips and techniques for keeping yourself organized and managing your time, and then also self-care when it comes to a director. Sometimes you feel very tied to your center, so ways that we can free ourselves from our center so that we can go ahead and take care of ourselves. So as a director in any kind of program that you run, from school age, preschool, infant, toddler, all the way to FCC, if you are responsible for your program, you have a lot of duties and responsibilities to a wide variety of people and agencies: the people who work for you, the families that rely on you, and then the agencies that you have to report to. So when you prioritize time management and organization, and then also taking care of yourself, it can help to alleviate some of that burden and some of that stress. So we wear a lot of hats as somebody who's responsible for a program. So some of those roles might be a manager and supervisor of other staff, a mediator between staff, a counselor to staff, families, and children, somebody who provides emotional support either from families that are struggling or staff members that are having personal issues come up. We're a protector of children and an educator of children, supporter of other goals, and then we're a supervisor with responsibilities to a wide variety of agencies, maybe a board, if you're state eligible, licensing, federal programs. There's a lot of different people who look to us to provide care. And then we're also a leader, and we have our vision that I've talked about all course, kind of what we envision for our program. And so we're inspiring others to grow and progress along with us in order to meet that vision. So we have so many roles and hats and responsibilities that we have as a director. So managing and then prioritizing and basically balancing all of those roles, duties, and expectations can be really different. And it can be very difficult. So it's different depending on the program that you have and that you run, and it can be difficult to balance those roles. So prioritizing management techniques and then the policies is going to be really important. So hopefully throughout this whole course, you kind of coming away with this director's file or a body of work that we've created together. And it's by no means comprehensive. There's other things that you'll have to find or buy online in order to add to that. But hopefully you have kind of an idea of how to write a policy or a procedure in order to implement some change within a program, or to be upfront with staff and teachers about your expectations. So hopefully through these policies, you'll be putting out less fires. So you'll be proactive. So you'll head off, as we're getting into cold and flu season, maybe you'll head off a bunch of sick children by keeping your rooms really clean, and reminding parents what your policy is about when children need to be excluded. So then hopefully you might have less staff call out sick as we kind of get into this cold and flu season. So that might be a way that using techniques from management and then policies that we've written can help you stay on top and proactive about things. And then organization within your office. So where you actually work, the physical space, and then just the idea of all the behind the scenes work that you have to do in order to keep a program running smoothly. And then there's organization within the classroom and then the rest of your program as well to keep things running smoothly. And then a big thing is time management in order to prioritize your time and use it most effectively. So you have all of these roles. How in a day and a month, a year, are you going to fulfill all of the needs that people are requiring from you in order to kind of get everything done and done effectively? So organization techniques. I've talked a lot about the diversity of programs within our field, but it's also, when it comes to organization, going to be individual to you, who you are as a manager. And we talked at the very beginning in the first week of the semester, about who you are as a manager and a leader. And now we're kind of coming full circle back to that. So who you are as a manager and who you are as a personality is going to play very much into how you choose to organize. And for example, I'm literally working at a door. So I had an old door sitting around my house, and I have it on 2 file cabinets. Because I need a gigantic workspace in order to kind of keep things clear for myself. And then I have bookshelves and I have shelves and I have stacks of paper everywhere, and 50, you know, uh, lists that are going on about things that I need to do because I have 2 jobs, 3 kids, that type of stuff. So um, how we actually manage ourselves and manage the responsibilities that we have is going to be super specific to you. For example, my husband works, he has a very small little like box, and it contains his like laptop and 3 papers and 2 books, and that's all of his work. So he doesn't work from home, first of all, but he's much more streamlined, whereas I'm a little bit more cluttered and chaotic because I kind of have a lot of different balls going on in the air, and I have a lot of thoughts running through my head of, new ideas I want to try for this semester or things that I want to bring into that specific PowerPoint, stuff like that. So comparing me to my husband doesn't really work because we both get generally the things that we need to do done. We just work in really different ways. So knowing when you're looking at an organization that how you do it, it might be really different from anybody else has it. And then also, it might be really individual to the staff members. So each classroom might have their own way. And if you have more than one personality or one big personality in your classroom, each classroom is going to have to do it and negotiate themselves how they work and organize together as a classroom team. So you need to be able, the classrooms need to be able to work together, and you as a director need to work within those classroom setups so that you guys can stay organized as an entire program. Because you can have all of the policies in the world written, but if they're not implemented within the classroom, or the classroom's not aware of it, or they don't care about it, then it's not going to work effectively because it's not reaching the children and the families. Although when it does come to the kitchen, there's only really one way, and that's the food handler safe way. So I do want to bring up that within our maintenance, our support staff, like maintenance and kitchen staff, there's really kind of only one way to store materials like pesticides or kitchen things like that. But the classrooms are going to get a little bit more leeway in those types of things. But when we're changing our management practices or we're bringing on new staff, the most important thing is to be direct about your expectations and communicate them really effectively as a director. So from really big things like from DRDPs all the way to mundane things like how and when to turn in lesson plans, you need to communicate that to your staff so that they know what to expect. When is it due? Where is it stored? How is it turned in? That type of stuff is really important so that staff can stay on top of your expectations for them. Knowing that will really help the staff help the program because you can't do everything. You can't write every single DRDP for every single child in the program. Even if you're an FCC provider, you're going to need some support even from parents and stuff like that as far as giving you information about the child. So we do have to delegate, but helping our staff, even if it's 1 or 2 people, be able to help the program by knowing when things are due, where things should be placed, how they should communicate is really going to help your program as a whole. So we're going to jump into some specific ways that you can try to keep yourself organized. One of these ways is just a task list, which is basically a to-do list, but it's broken down by role or duty. So for example, in the image that I have, it's broken down by finances, licensing, staff, communication, marketing, but it's going to be individual to your program. If you don't mark it, then you would take that off and you could replace it with state eligibility roles and duties, something like that. Then it tracks duties by date, which I think is really great. So we all know when our DRDP are due generally, but there might also be other requirements that they have that are time sensitive. So knowing when they need to be turned in, and then just generally as well, keeping on top of everything so that, if you are doing taxes, most likely you want to do them by quarter or something like that so that you're not sitting at the end of the year and having to wade through, all of this information from an entire fiscal year. So that might be ways that you break up large tasks into smaller tasks by giving them a time that they will be completed. And we talked a little about this on the plan of action and our SMART goals, keeping things achievable. And when we set a time to it, then it's more apt that it will happen. And then also the person responsible. So if you're the only management person, a lot of this will come down to you or experienced staff members and teaching staff that you have. If you're with a larger program within your management team, and then also if you're an FCC provider, you and the other person who works for you, or you and your husband who helps you with maintenance, that type of stuff. So you can track who's going to take care of these tasks and at what time. And then also the images from the child care lounge. So I found this online. I think it would be really easy to change it to be specific to your program. So you can even take off the staff responsible thing, and it could just be things that you're working on, when it's going to happen, and then also when it's going to occur. So then working with staff. So I talked about onboarding or making changes. So really what it is about relationship building, because relationship is a two-way street. So I support the teachers in the classroom or the teachers who work with me, and I expect them to support me back. So through effective communication and something like a communication law that I have here, and then mutual support, we should be able to run more effective programs that deliver what they're supposed to, which is quality childcare. So for example, this might be a way of communicating with staff in the classroom and for them to communicate with you. So about children, new families, general questions or comments, something like this. It could be a written log that you do with your staff back and forth throughout a week. It could just be a booklet. It could be verbal meetings during nap time where you go in and you check with the staff. But just making sure that staff has a way to communicate with you and you have a way to communicate with them, just the daily mundane things, and then also the big training issues as well. So that's going to be really important. So for our FCC providers staying organized, obviously Tom Copeland, he has an entire book about this. And then the creative curriculum for FCC also has some really great resources as well. Because really less children and less staff doesn't mean less organization. It probably means that you have to be more organized on a daily basis in order to stay on top of all of the things that you have to do. Because it really just comes down to you. There's not another typically team that you can rely on as far as management. You are responsible for almost all of the things. So you're really, as a director, combining the management that you need to be available to agencies like licensing in the food program, and then also classroom management, because you're more than likely providing care throughout most of the day as well. So you need to be good at your classroom management and keeping your lessons plans doing, and then also the director part of it, which is like enrollment, finances, stuff like that. The program that I worked in, she had what's now kind of called a bullet journal, but it was really just kind of an ongoing to-do list that she had, where she would identify like the top 3 things for each day that she needed to work on within her home. So it was one woman who had an assistant teacher who worked with her. And so she just kind of had one place in a very small little journal that kind of fit in her back pocket. And so that's where she kind of kept things that she needed to remember, talk to so-and-so about tuition, or order new crib sheets, something like that. So that's kind of where she kept all of her ideas. And then she also, by day and by week, had like 2 things that she'd want to achieve for that day. So like organize her food program paperwork, or go through and perform an audit of her outdoor activities and materials to make sure that everything was safe. So she had things that she needed to do and take care of that she wanted to remember, and then things as well that were goals that she was going to try to work on. And I thought that was a great way to do it. But as the picture that I have shows, and I know most of you are already doing this, but a main place for paperwork and then management stuff that's out of reach from the children, but it's still accessible to the parents and the provider throughout the day. So this is the place where the parents sign in and out, and then also where you might have folders or binders or something like that for the food program, for enrollment, for budgeting, ordering food, all the licensing forms that you need, and then like emergency procedures and forms. So I think this picture kind of shows a really great way that she's kind of tried to keep herself organized while also having all of the pertinent information posted that families would need to have. We're going to jump into time management though, because like I said, we have a myriad of roles and responsibilities and daily tasks. And so how do we kind of balance the needs of keeping our program up and running and then handling emergencies and crises that might come up daily, weekly, monthly? Because even the most well-run program, because we deal with children and we deal with families, there's always going to be an emergency or a crisis that you need to handle. So how do you balance day-to-day operations and things that come up? So how to prioritize and deciding which tasks get accomplished is a skill. So you have to learn that by practicing and then also by trying to change your practices. So if it's not working for you now, making small gradual changes to your time management and practicing them, for more than 30 days, probably more than 3 months, is going to help you practice that skill of knowing what's the most important task that you have to do and then prioritizing when it happens. Some time management tips for directors, and I took some of this from page 16 of our textbook, but the biggest one and the most unpopular one is probably arriving to school before opening or staying after closing. So making your schedule so if your center opens at 7, that you're there at 6:15 or 6:30, and then you leave at 3:30 or 4. And then have another person responsible after you leave, or if you're a night owl, getting to work at 9:30, having somebody you trust open your center, and then planning on staying until 6:30 or 7. Especially for people that are starting out in this field, your days are going to be longer than when you were a teacher. You're probably going to take home less, but you're going to have to be on site more in order to be on the computer, to balance the books, to order things, to help staff members. So there's a lot that we're doing. So having some quiet time before the children enter for the day and before the staff is kind of clamoring for things that they need you to do, having some quiet time in order to work on things, even if it's 20 minutes, can really help. I've worked both schedules, so arriving early and then staying late. There's not one that I prefer, but even just having a couple of minutes really, really helped in trying to knock out some of those tasks that are longer, like writing reports or doing teacher evaluations, things like that. If you have 20 minutes and you can spend 20 minutes each day knocking out a few of them, that will really help you get towards that goal of finishing it. And then also scheduling one day a month or a week for like sporadic duties. So there's things that we don't have to do every day, like ordering food, balancing the book, staff observations or evaluations, writing out job descriptions, hiring, that type of stuff. So setting up one day a month or a week in order to work on these sporadic duties might really help you, because it's not something that you have to worry about on a daily basis. So saying like every third week of the month, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go through my receipts for that month might help you stay on top of this kind of financial management that you have to do over an entire month, an entire year. And then also investigating technology and how it can help with routines and mundane tasks. A lot of you are probably already doing this as far as human resources and payroll. You have some kind of system that you pay into or you pay for monthly that helps you balance when leave is due, how much staff worked, how much they get paid, stuff like that. So taking that kind of idea of having a system that helps you like that, it could be one for balancing money, or it can track and alert you when training is due. Our CPR, our first aid, something like that. And then as a team, hopefully maybe you have a management team, prioritize sharing duties. So on some days, one person can shut the door and work on a report or ordering or something like that. And then on another day, and then that other person handles classroom duties or is just on call for any of those things that happen throughout the day. And then vice versa, if you get that one day, another day somebody else does it as well. So that might really help you as far as staying on top of your own personal to-do list, is using the people around you, especially people that have management training. So some of you might be in the classroom already and you're hoping to kind of get this management class to fulfill those duties or fulfill your dream of running a daycare or a center of your own one day. So maybe approaching where you work now and telling that person, hey, I'd like to, take on some added responsibility. Then maybe you could be responsible or the person like on call at your center at that time, you know, for an hour or an hour and a half, something like that. And people could come to your classroom, or you could come out and sit somewhere else. And then allowing your director to kind of work on the things that she needs to as well. That might help you get some management experience while you're still in the classroom. And then also show your program that you're willing and ready to learn and take that next step in your management journey. So there's two other ways that we can manage our time, and that is to delegate tasks and responsibilities or to remove them altogether. So delegating obviously means that you're taking something that you can give to someone else who might have experience or that might be their strength, or you want to help them develop that strength. So it can go to mentor teachers, classroom teams, assistant directors, administrative assistant, or contractors or consultants, things like that. So for example, with ECHRS, so I trained the staff in what ECHRS meant and how I wanted it to be implemented, but the teams kind of assessed themselves and each other with a mentor teacher who kind of oversaw the whole process. And I really tapped her for this because she was very Reggio inspired, and her major strength was like classroom planning, classroom environments. She was phenomenal at it. So having her help me overseeing the ECHRS process was really great, because then I could just check in during plan of action, and I know that she had imparted a lot of her wisdom already by observing and assessing by using ECHRS. And then we as a team could talk about plan of action and next steps. So that was one way that I was able to delegate to a mentor teacher. You could also do it with classroom teams as far as ECHRS. One team assesses like an infant toddler team assesses the preschool, and then preschool assesses infant toddler, you know, something like that. And then you should be involved at some stage just to make sure that what the goals are appropriate and things that you can also support. And then you can remove. So you can remove roles and responsibilities. Like one of the Montessori that my daughters went to, she no longer wanted to do the food program. It didn't Financially, it probably would have helped, but she felt it was negligible and it wasn't worth it for her and in the small program that she ran to take care of the food program. So she just had the families bring in snacks and lunch. So that was how she kind of took that off of her plate. You can also remove age groups or types of programs. You could only be part day or have no part day. Or you could only have infant toddler but no preschool. Or you could be all preschool and no infant toddler. This is highly individual because it's going to affect your budget one way or another. The plus or the minus, I don't know. It depends on what your community can handle and how you derive your money. So if you can remove age groups and still be viable, but it's something that you're going to have to discuss and crunch the numbers on yourself. So that's my disclaimer when it comes to removing age groups or types of programs, is you need to have your bottom line budget affecting your decision highly. So as far as a plan for time management, what I really look at is what is my daily priority. So there's no more than 3 typically, but it might be something like call back a parent who inquired about enrollment, maybe draft my budget for next year or start drafting my budget. And then also I want to check in with my toddler teachers about a specific classroom issue with like diapering or something like that. So I have things that I need to do, and I can kind of look at them and see what the time is. So I know I'm probably going to check in with my toddler teachers at noon time, around when all the children have gone down for naps, so we can sit down and we can have a chat. Calling the parent, I probably want to knock that out first. It's probably a 9 to 15 minute call, so that's going to be something small. But I know the beginning draft of my enrollment budget for next year is probably going to be a really big duty. It's going to go on for multiple days, so I'm going to probably need the most time out of my day to work on that. So how am I going to do that? Am I going to ask to be able to shut my door? Am I going to take it with me on my lunch break and try to work on it? Am I going to break it down into 15-minute sections throughout the day so that I can get some work done while I also kind of prioritize the needs of my center? So what's my priority? No more than 3, and how can I kind of achieve it within my day? What I do always like to identify so that everybody in my program knows is what can I be interrupted for and what can wait. So obviously emergencies, I can always, no matter where I am, who I'm talking with, come get me. Also an issue with a child that was time sensitive, like, a very upset parent, an issue with bullying, something like that. I want to know in that day and most likely in that moment. And then child abuse as well is huge. That was always one of my things for my staff knew, and I talked about it last week. Any issue, any inkling, just come to me. We're going to kind of figure this out in the moment, and in any big instance. And then issues with staff that also need immediate attention, like somebody's really upset or a really rude parent that made you not feel safe or secure in your classroom. Those were the types of things where my door could always be knocked on. I could come out of a meeting, I could end a phone call early, something like that. So knowing what you can be interrupted for and what's the most important thing, and letting your staff know, and then other things that can wait. So if you have this fantastic plan for rearranging your classroom, if I'm sitting down and I'm working on a case sensitive report for a government agency, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what, let's schedule some time. How about we do it on Thursday, because I've really got to finish this today. So knowing what you can be interrupted for and what can wait. And then a periodic check-in, weekly, monthly, and yearly, to see what your goals are and if they're aligning with your vision of the center. So what are you working towards? What are your long-term goals in order to make your program better? So I wanted to just talk a little bit about self-care. And for me, self-care is not like a cup of hot cocoa and twinkling lights and a foot massage. For me, those are indulgences, which are hugely important. Having a way to unwind is really important. But self-care is doing the hard things to take care of yourself. And that's kind of why I have this do your hard thing day, which is from Momastery, which is a woman, Glennon Doyle. She's very heavily on Instagram and stuff like that. But she kind of talked about the idea of prioritizing your care when it comes to the hard things that you're kind of afraid of. So that might be like scheduling a mammogram if you're over age 40, going to the dentist and taking care of your teeth. Some of us can feel so tied to our centers that even like going out to lunch or something like that can seem so overwhelming. Or going to see your kids' events in the middle of the day if you can swing it. That's the type of stuff that can be hard to do, but are really important so that we can fill up the well within ourselves so that we can give unto other people. We all know that we're in a caring profession and we give and we give and we give and we give, but taking care of yourself with the hard thing that's going to keep you healthy and safe and strong so that you can continue to give is going to be so important. So you need to have a plan. If you're the only person, having your other teacher take a management class so that you can step out, so that you don't have to be there 8, 10, 12 hours a day, something like that, so that you can take care of yourself and go to the dentist. And I keep talking about the dentist because for me, that's my hard thing. I have terrible teeth. And I got it from my mom. We always commiserate about it. But I know that I'm taking care of myself when I have regularly scheduled checkups and I go, and then I find out that another thing is wrong with my teeth and I have to take care of them. So that's how I know that I'm prioritizing myself, is when I regularly get to the dentist. It might be something really different for you. It might be, that when you are regularly going to therapy to kind of talk about your upbringing or your childhood, you're able to go every 2 weeks. That might be how you do your hard thing to take care of yourself. So we have a lot of roles and responsibilities, a lot of things that people expect from us, and balancing the varied needs of our program can be a challenge. But hopefully by utilizing time management and organization, you're better able to manage your roles and responsibilities so that your program is run effectively.